Tonight, allow your thoughts to become as gentle as the first light of morning. Find a comfortable position, let your breathing slow, and close your eyes. Together, we will quietly wander through the peaceful legends surrounding Apollo, the god of music, light, poetry, and healing. There is no hurry, no danger, and no mystery to solve. Only calm stories, soft landscapes, and the quiet rhythm of the ancient Greek world. Long before Apollo became the radiant god of light, music, and prophecy, his story began with quiet uncertainty. His mother, Leto, wandered across the ancient world searching for a peaceful place where she could safely bring her children into the world. Many lands hesitated to welcome her, fearing the anger of Hera, queen of the gods. Through calm seas and beneath broad skies, Leto continued without bitterness, carrying patience instead of despair. Her gentle journey became one of endurance, guided by hope rather than haste, as the distant island of Delos slowly waded beyond the shimmering waters. Delos was unlike the great mountains or fertile valleys celebrated in ancient songs. It was a small rocky island, once said to drift gently upon the sea before finding its resting place. Though modest in size, it offered something more valuable than grandeur. It provided calm shelter when few others dared. Ancient storytellers remembered Delos not for its power, but for its quiet kindness. In welcoming Leto, the island became forever connected with one of the most beloved births in Greek mythology, transforming an overlooked place into sacred ground. The gentle waves surrounding Delos reflected the pale colors of dawn as Leto stepped onto its peaceful shore. The island itself became a symbol of hospitality, accepting a traveler who needed nothing more than safety and rest. Ancient myths often celebrated mighty victories, yet this moment honored simple compassion. Delos asked for no reward beyond a promise that it would be remembered. In that quiet exchange between a wandering goddess and a humble island, a lasting bond was formed that would echo throughout Greek tradition. Near a graceful palm tree, Leto found a place where she could finally remain still. The tree became one of the enduring symbols of Apollo's birth, remembered for centuries by poets and pilgrims alike. The gentle breeze moved through its leaves while the sea remained calm around the island. Nature itself seemed peaceful rather than dramatic. There was no rushing storm or crashing thunder. Instead, the world settled into quiet balance, allowing the coming birth to unfold with steady, comforting rhythm. According to many ancient traditions, Leto first gave birth to Artemis. Though still newly born, Artemis was already associated with calm strength and the natural world. Some stories tell that she immediately helped her mother during the birth of her twin brother. This gentle detail highlights the close bond between the divine twins from the very beginning. Rather than emphasizing power, the tale quietly celebrates care, family, and shared presence, qualities that remain woven through many Greek myths surrounding Apollo and Artemis. Soon afterward, Apollo entered the world upon the peaceful island. His birth marked the arrival of a god whose influence would eventually touch music, healing, poetry, prophecy, and the ordered movement of light across the heavens. Yet at this first moment, none of those future honors disturbed the silence. He was simply a newborn child resting beside his mother. The mythology lingers on the calm setting, reminding listeners that even the brightest figures in legend begin with moments of stillness and quiet care. The gods of Olympus recognized the significance of Apollo's birth, and Delos itself became forever sacred. Over generations, temples and sanctuaries would rise upon the island, welcoming travelers from across the Greek world. Pilgrims crossed the sea not because Delos was large or wealthy, but because memory had made it meaningful. The landscape carried the quiet echo of an ancient beginning, where kindness offered refuge, and a peaceful island became forever linked with divine light. Apollo was often associated with brightness, yet the earliest moments of his story unfolded gently beneath the soft colors of dawn. This balance between quiet beginnings and radiant destiny appears throughout Greek mythology. Light does not always arrive suddenly. Sometimes it grows gradually, much like sunrise spreading across still water. The myths invite the imagination to rest within that slow transition, where darkness gently gives way to calm illumination without struggle or noise. Ancient Greek poets remembered Delos with affection, describing it as a place forever blessed by Apollo's presence. The island became more than a location upon a map. It became a symbol of sanctuary, reminding listeners that even humble places may carry lasting importance. Through songs and hymns, Delos continued to live within cultural memory. Its quiet shores preserved not through conquest, but through the enduring beauty of a peaceful story told across many generations. As Apollo grew within later myths, his connection to harmony remained central. The calm circumstances of his birth seemed to reflect qualities that would define him throughout Greek tradition. Music seeks balance. Healing restores order. Prophecy searches for truth beneath confusion. Even the measured course of the sun follows steady patterns across the sky. These themes begin softly on Delos, where peace welcomed the child who would later embody harmony in many different forms. Visitors to Delos in the ancient world often walked among sacred spaces while remembering the quiet birth celebrated there. The island became a destination for festivals honoring Apollo, yet beneath every ceremony remained the simple memory of Leto finding refuge. Grand celebrations eventually surrounded a story that had begun with gentle stillness. The contrast gave Delos a unique place within Greek religion, where humble beginnings and lasting reverence existed side by side. The sea surrounding Delos remained an enduring companion to the island's story. Gentle waves carried merchants, pilgrims, poets, and travelers toward its shores across many centuries. Each arrival echoed the earlier journey of Leto herself, who had once crossed those waters seeking only safety. The rhythm of the sea became part of Apollo's earliest memory within myth, offering a quiet background that never overpowered the peaceful significance of the place. In Greek mythology, sacred places often gained meaning through unforgettable moments rather than overwhelming size or power. Delos remained relatively small, yet its place within the imagination became immense. The island reminded generations that quiet acts of welcome could shape the stories of gods themselves. This gentle lesson settled naturally into the landscape, where stone, sea, and sky preserved the memory of Apollo's first day beneath the rising sun. The story of Apollo's birth closes without urgency. A mother had found rest, an island had offered shelter, and a child destined for brilliance had entered the world in peaceful silence. Before the music of the lyre, before the oracle at Delphi, and before the golden chariot of later tradition, there was only Delos resting quietly upon the sea. It remains one of the most serene beginnings in Greek mythology, inviting gentle reflection through its enduring calm. Long before Apollo became the radiant guardian of music, healing, and prophecy, his story began with quiet beginnings. His mother, Leto, wandered the ancient world in search of a peaceful place to give birth. At last, the gentle island of Delos welcomed her. Surrounded by calm waters and soft sea breezes, she rested beneath the open sky. There, after patient waiting, Apollo entered the world. Ancient poets described nature itself as becoming still, as though the earth paused for a gentle breath before greeting the young god with quiet warmth. Apollo was born after his twin sister Artemis. In many ancient traditions, Artemis quickly became a caring helper to their mother during the birth of her younger brother. This gentle image remained beloved throughout Greek storytelling, Rather than scenes of excitement, the earliest moments of Apollo's life are often remembered with peaceful tenderness. His family rested together beneath the bright sky, while sunlight reflected softly across the quiet waters surrounding the sacred island. The newborn god was wrapped in fine cloth and laid upon the peaceful ground of Delos. Ancient hymns tell that the island itself rejoiced, not with loud celebration, but with quiet blessing. Birds drifted overhead, the sea remained calm, and the fresh air carried the feeling of a new beginning. Even before Apollo spoke or walked, he belonged to places filled with harmony, clear light, and gentle order. Greek mythology often describes Apollo as unusually swift in his growth. Within a remarkably short time, the young god stood with calm confidence, already reflecting dignity beyond his years. This was not meant as ordinary childhood, but as a sign of divine nature. His peaceful presence suggested balance rather than power alone. Even in these early moments, the stories placed him close to sunlight, thoughtful movement, and graceful calm. As Apollo grew, light became one of his quiet companions. Although later traditions closely connected him with the sun, the earliest myths first emphasized brightness, clarity, and beauty. Morning light spreading across mountains and gentle rays touching temples became fitting symbols for the young god. Rather than overwhelming brilliance, these images carried the peaceful rhythm of each new day beginning without haste. Music also found its place beside Apollo from an early age. The lyre, later gifted to him by Hermes through a famous exchange, would become one of his lasting symbols. Even before that story unfolded, poets imagined harmony surrounding the young god. Music represented balance within the world, where each note settled naturally beside the next, like waves arriving one after another upon a quiet shore. The peaceful world of Apollo was shaped by open skies, distant mountains, and quiet sacred places. Ancient Greece valued harmony between people, nature, and the divine, and Apollo gradually came to represent that ideal. His childhood stories rarely dwell on restless adventure. Instead, they move gently through scenes filled with fresh air, calm landscapes, and the steady passage of light from dawn toward midday. Leto remained an important presence beside her son. Having endured hardship before his birth, she became a symbol of quiet endurance and patient strength. Apollo's earliest years unfolded under her gentle care, where protection did not require noise or display. Ancient listeners could imagine peaceful days upon Delos, with the sea nearby and the steady rhythm of nature surrounding the divine family. The island of Delos itself held lasting importance throughout Greek history. Pilgrims later traveled there to honor Apollo and remember his birth. Temples rose over time, yet the landscape remained central to the story. Rocky ground, open water, and clear sunlight created an atmosphere of quiet reverence. The setting reminded visitors that even great gods could have humble beginnings in peaceful places. Apollo's character came to reflect qualities admired throughout the Greek world. Calm judgment, measured speech, graceful movement, and appreciation for beauty all became associated with him. These traits seemed to grow naturally from the peaceful surroundings of his earliest days. Rather than rushing toward greatness, mythology allows his presence to unfold like daylight slowly filling a quiet landscape. In ancient poetry, light was often more than brightness alone. It represented understanding, balance, and clear perception. Apollo gradually became linked with these ideas, yet his childhood remained free from heavy responsibility. The young god belonged first to simple scenes of nature, where gentle winds crossed the hills and each sunrise quietly renewed the world without effort or haste. The peaceful childhood of Apollo reminds modern readers that Greek mythology contains moments of remarkable stillness alongside its famous adventures. Between prophecies, heroic journeys, and divine contests, there are quiet stories of gentle beginnings. Apollo's earliest days invite attention toward calm rhythms that return again and again, just as morning always follows the night across the ancient world. As the young god matured, his connection with harmony continued to deepen. Sacred songs, orderly festivals, and carefully tended sanctuaries would later honor his name across Greece. Yet those future celebrations seemed to grow naturally from the quiet peace of Delos. The gentle island remained the first home of a deity, whose greatest gifts would often bring comfort, beauty, and thoughtful reflection. Remembering Apollo as a child offers a softer view of Greek mythology. Before temples echoed with hymns and before pilgrims sought his guidance, there was simply a peaceful island, clear skies, and the steady rhythm of the sea. In that tranquil beginning, the young god rested within a world shaped by balance, gentle light, and enduring calm, setting the tone for the stories that would quietly follow through the centuries. Apollo was often imagined with a lyre resting lightly against his shoulder, its quiet strings reflecting the balance he brought to the world. The instrument was more than a source of melody. In Greek tradition, it represented harmony, careful thought, and the peaceful meeting of skill and inspiration. Stories describe Apollo choosing music that encouraged calm rather than excitement, allowing every note to settle gently into the air. His songs became symbols of order, reminding listeners that beauty could emerge through patience, careful practice, and an attentive heart. Even silence between the notes carried meaning, as restful as the pause before dawn. The lyre itself carried a remarkable story. Hermes, still young among the Olympian gods, crafted the first version from a tortoise shell and offered it to Apollo as a gift after resolving a disagreement between them. Apollo accepted both the instrument and the gesture of peace. The exchange transformed conflict into friendship through generosity and understanding. From that moment, the lyre became closely connected with Apollo, who refined its music into something admired across Greece. The tale gently suggested that harmony could sometimes grow from moments that first appeared uncertain. In many temples dedicated to Apollo, music accompanied quiet ceremonies and seasonal celebrations. Gentle melodies drifted through open courtyards, blending with birdsong and the soft movement of the wind. These performances were not meant to overwhelm the senses. Instead, they encouraged reflection, gratitude, and steady attention. The Greeks believed that ordered music reflected the ordered movement of the heavens themselves. A carefully played melody could remind people that every season, every sunrise, and every passing day belonged to a greater rhythm, unfolding with calm and dependable grace. Apollo also became a patron of poets, who sought inspiration before beginning their verses. Poetry was carefully woven together with music, and many poems were meant to be sung rather than simply spoken. Rhythm guided memory, allowing stories to travel from one generation to the next with remarkable care. Under Apollo's gentle influence, poetry became a quiet companion to wisdom, encouraging listeners to notice beauty in ordinary moments. The measured pace of each line reflected the same balance found in the turning of the seasons and the rising of the sun. The ancient Greeks admired moderation, and Apollo often represented this ideal through music. A melody that flowed with balance was considered more enduring than one filled with excess. Gentle repetition, graceful pauses, and thoughtful pacing allowed every note to find its place. Listening became an act of quiet attention rather than hurried excitement. Through these traditions, music was understood not only as entertainment, but also as a peaceful exercise for the mind, inviting calm reflection while gently easing restless thoughts into stillness. At sacred places such as Delphi, hymns honoring Apollo echoed across stone terraces and mountain air. Singers offered carefully composed verses, while the clear tones of the lyre supported every word. These performances celebrated gratitude, reverence, and the enduring order of the divine world. The surrounding landscape became part of the music, as gentle breezes carried each sound across the valley. Even after the final note faded, the quiet that followed seemed equally meaningful, leaving behind a lasting sense of peace. The Muses, daughters of memory, were closely associated with Apollo. Together they represented the arts that enriched both daily life and sacred tradition. Apollo did not replace their gifts, but guided them with steady leadership, encouraging every form of creative expression to flourish in harmony. Songs, poems, histories, and dances found a shared home within this peaceful companionship. Their presence reminded the Greeks that knowledge and beauty were not separate paths, but gentle companions moving side by side through human experience. The sound of the lyre was often imagined as clear rather than powerful. Its gentle voice carried easily through open courtyards, quiet groves, and sunlit hillsides without disturbing the natural world. Birds continued their songs, leaves continued to move, and streams continued their patient flow. Instead of competing with nature, the music blended into it. This peaceful relationship reflected Apollo's role as a guardian of balance, allowing art and the natural world to exist together with quiet respect. Many young people in ancient Greece learned music alongside reading, poetry, and physical training. These studies were considered parts of a balanced education rather than separate pursuits. Music encouraged discipline, memory, and careful listening. Apollo stood as an ideal example of these qualities, inspiring thoughtful practice instead of hurried achievement. Each lesson became a quiet reminder that lasting skill grows gradually, shaped by steady attention and patient repetition rather than sudden success. Artists across centuries often portrayed Apollo standing peacefully with his lyre beneath open skies or among sacred trees. These images emphasized serenity rather than dramatic action. The god appeared calm, balanced, and quietly attentive, as though listening to a melody already present within the landscape itself. Such scenes reflected the enduring belief that music belonged naturally beside sunlight, gentle breezes, and the steady rhythms of the earth. Beauty emerged not through noise but through quiet harmony. The laurel tree, sacred to Apollo, frequently appeared beside musicians and poets. Its evergreen leaves symbolized enduring honor and thoughtful achievement rather than fleeting praise. Wreaths woven from laurel crowned poets, musicians, and victors, quietly linking artistic excellence with Apollo's lasting presence. The gentle rustling of laurel leaves in the breeze became another subtle reminder of calm endurance, suggesting that true accomplishment grows slowly and remains graceful long after applause has faded. Greek myths often describe divine music as something capable of restoring balance after confusion. Apollo's songs did not erase sorrow or difficulty, but they reminded listeners that harmony could return with time. Like sunrise following the longest night, quiet melodies suggested renewal through steady rhythms rather than sudden change. This gentle understanding helped shape Apollo's enduring image as a bringer of clarity, offering peaceful order through sound as naturally as daylight spread across the horizon. Across generations, storytellers remembered Apollo not only for prophecy or radiant light, but also for the quiet music that accompanied his presence. His lyre represented measured thought, patient creativity, and lasting balance. Every carefully imagined note invited listeners to slow their pace and notice the peaceful order surrounding them. In this way, the music of Apollo became less about performance and more about gentle attention, allowing calm to unfold naturally, one steady rhythm after another. As daylight gradually softened into evening, the image of Apollo with his lyre remained one of quiet reassurance within Greek tradition. Music, poetry, and gentle reflection formed a peaceful circle that returned again and again through the seasons. The stories did not rush toward endings, but rested within the steady rhythm of nature itself. Like the final fading note of a calm melody, Apollo's presence settled softly into memory, leaving behind an enduring sense of balance, beauty, and tranquil light. High on the gentle slopes of Mount Parnassus, the sanctuary of Delphi rested among cypress trees, pale stone, and quiet mountain air. Ancient travelers believed this peaceful place was especially dear to Apollo, who became its divine guardian after establishing his presence there. Long before sunrise, the sanctuary already seemed touched by soft light, as if the first rays paused among the columns before reaching the valleys below. Birds called from the hillsides, cool breezes carried the scent of pine, and every stone reflected centuries of careful devotion. The rhythm of each day unfolded without haste, guided by calm routines that honored harmony, balance, and thoughtful reverence. The temple of Apollo stood at the heart of the sanctuary with measured dignity. Its columns rose in quiet symmetry, welcoming the changing light from morning until evening. Visitors climbed the sacred way at an unhurried pace, passing monuments that reflected gratitude rather than grandeur alone. Every step invited slower movement, encouraging reflection before reaching the temple itself. Nothing hurried the traveler forward. The climb became part of the experience, allowing the mountain, the sky, and the silence to prepare each visitor for a place where careful words and peaceful attention were considered meaningful offerings. At first light, caretakers quietly swept the stone pathways and arranged the sacred spaces with patient care. Dust from the mountain was gently cleared, fresh branches were placed where appropriate, and simple offerings were prepared with respect. Daily maintenance was itself a form of devotion, expressing gratitude through ordinary tasks completed with consistency. The sanctuary remained beautiful not because it sought perfection, but because each generation contributed small acts of care. Such routines reflected Apollo's association with order, reminding visitors that harmony often grows from gentle repetition rather than dramatic gestures. Laurel held special meaning within Apollo's traditions. Its evergreen leaves appeared in garlands, sacred decorations, and quiet ceremonies throughout the sanctuary. The tree recalled ancient stories connected with the god and gradually became one of his enduring symbols. Even a single branch suggested steadiness, renewal, and lasting memory. Unlike flowers that quickly faded, laurel remained green through changing seasons, offering a gentle reminder that calm devotion could continue day after day. Its presence blended naturally with the mountain landscape, adding soft color to the pale stone buildings. As daylight spread across the sanctuary, musicians occasionally offered melodies that suited the peaceful surroundings. Apollo was closely linked with the lyre, whose gentle tones represented balance rather than spectacle. Music here was not intended to overwhelm the listener. Instead, measured rhythms and graceful harmonies complemented the sounds already present in nature. Wind through trees, distant birds, and quiet footsteps blended with carefully played notes. Together, they formed an atmosphere where silence and music existed comfortably beside one another, each allowing the other to be fully appreciated. Smoke from small offerings sometimes rose into the still air in thin, graceful streams, Fragrant herbs and incense created gentle scents that drifted through the sanctuary without urgency. These offerings expressed respect rather than extravagance, reflecting a belief that sincere intention mattered as much as costly gifts. As sunlight illuminated the rising smoke, the scene seemed to unite earth and sky in quiet simplicity. Every familiar ritual repeated patterns that countless generations had practiced, allowing continuity itself to become part of the sacred experience. The famous spring known as Castalia flowed nearby, its clear waters descending from the mountain through smooth stone channels. Before participating in sacred activities, many visitors performed simple acts of purification there. The flowing water represented freshness, clarity, and thoughtful preparation rather than elaborate ceremony. Listening to its steady movement encouraged calm attention. Even after travelers departed, the spring continued its quiet journey through the landscape, unchanged by the many generations who paused beside it. Its constant flow reflected the enduring rhythm of nature itself. The sanctuary welcomed people from many Greek communities, yet its atmosphere remained surprisingly tranquil. Travelers often spent time observing the buildings, reading inscriptions, or resting beneath shaded trees before continuing their journeys. Conversation tended to remain respectful within the sacred grounds. The mountain setting encouraged quieter voices and slower movements. Surrounded by stone terraces and open sky, visitors became part of a place shaped by centuries of shared tradition. Daily life unfolded gently, allowing each person to experience the sanctuary according to a peaceful rhythm rather than a hurried schedule. Throughout the day, sunlight slowly shifted across the temple's columns, changing their appearance hour by hour. Morning brightness softened into warm afternoon tones before evening shadows lengthened across the marble floors. Apollo's connection with light did not suggest constant brilliance alone. Instead, the changing qualities of daylight reflected a balanced cycle that repeated with quiet reliability. The sanctuary revealed new details as the hours passed, inviting careful observation rather than quick impressions. Time itself became part of the sacred landscape, measured gently by the movement of the sun. Nearby treasuries built by different Greek cities displayed carefully crafted architecture and offerings. These buildings expressed gratitude for blessings received and victories remembered, while also contributing to the beauty of the sanctuary. Though each treasury reflected its own community, together they created a harmonious collection along the sacred way. Their presence reminded visitors that many distant places shared respect for Apollo and Delphi. Rather than competing for attention, the buildings stood side by side, forming a peaceful conversation in stone across the mountainside. The natural surroundings remained inseparable from the sanctuary itself. Pine forests covered the nearby slopes, wildflowers appeared between ancient stones, and distant peaks framed the horizon. The landscape offered constant reminders that sacred places were not isolated from nature, but woven into it. Gentle breezes carried changing scents throughout the seasons, while birds continued their familiar songs regardless of human ceremonies. Apollo's sanctuary existed within this living environment, where mountain, sky, and temple quietly supported one another in lasting balance. As evening approached, activity gradually diminished without abrupt endings. The warmth of the day faded into cooler mountain air, and golden light settled softly upon the marble walls. Shadows lengthened across the sacred way, while the sanctuary returned to deeper stillness. Familiar routines concluded just as gently as they had begun. Nothing seemed hurried or unfinished. The quiet descent of daylight reflected the same measured order that shaped every aspect of life within the sacred precinct, allowing peace to linger after the final rays disappeared. When night finally covered Delphi, The sanctuary rested beneath countless stars above Mount Parnassus. Cool air settled among the columns, and silence became the final companion of the day. The temple, the spring, the laurel trees, and the winding pathways remained exactly where they had stood for generations, waiting patiently for another sunrise. In this steady cycle of light, music, nature, and careful ritual, Apollo's presence was remembered not through constant action, but through enduring harmony that gently returned with every new dawn. Across the centuries, the sanctuary became more than a destination. It embodied a daily rhythm in which ordinary acts of care carried lasting meaning. Swept paths, quiet melodies, flowing water, evergreen laurel, and the slow passage of sunlight together formed a peaceful pattern that outlived generations. The enduring memory of Delphi rests not only in famous stories, but also in these calm repetitions that honored balance and thoughtful living. In that gentle rhythm, Apollo's sanctuary remained a place where order and serenity quietly shared the same timeless home. Each morning in ancient Greek imagination, Apollo began another quiet passage across the heavens. Earlier traditions often connected the sun with Helios, yet over time, Apollo came to embody many of the sun's gentle qualities, becoming closely linked with light, clarity, and the steady arrival of day. His journey was not imagined as hurried or dramatic. Instead, it unfolded with reassuring regularity, marking the peaceful rhythm of life. Farmers awoke to warm fields, shepherds watched the hills brighten, and temples slowly emerged from soft shadows as golden light spread across Greece with calm and patient certainty. The first light touched rocky coastlines, olive groves, and quiet valleys in an even, gentle flow. Ancient people observed these familiar moments every day, finding comfort in the dependable return of brightness after every night. Apollo's presence became a symbol of order rather than force. His light revealed paths, warmed stone temples, and filled peaceful sanctuaries with soft illumination. Nothing needed to rush. The steady movement of daylight reminded the Greeks that nature followed patterns older than memory, carrying every morning toward a calm and balanced afternoon. High above the land, Apollo represented harmony between heaven and earth. His association with music matched the measured movement of the sky itself. Just as melodies followed graceful rhythms, the daylight seemed to travel with quiet precision from east to west. Ancient poets often found inspiration in this balance, describing light as something that gently unfolded rather than suddenly appeared. Every sunrise became another verse in an endless song that needed no audience, existing simply because the world continued in its peaceful course. The mountains of Greece received the morning light before many valleys below. Snow-covered peaks reflected soft gold, while lower forests remained wrapped in gentle shade. Gradually, every hillside welcomed the same calm brightness. This slow unfolding reflected the patient character often associated with divine order. Apollo did not command attention through noise. Instead, his presence could be imagined in the quiet certainty that every landscape would eventually receive its share of warmth, as the hours passed without haste. Across peaceful seas, sunlight formed shimmering paths upon the water. Sailors watched these bright reflections stretch toward distant horizons, offering both beauty and reliable guidance. Apollo's connection with light made him a fitting companion for such tranquil scenes. The sea itself appeared calmer beneath the gentle glow, and the changing colors of morning reminded observers that every day carried its own subtle variations, while still following the familiar rhythm established by the heavens. The sanctuary at Delphi, sacred to Apollo, rested among mountain slopes where sunlight slowly reached stone columns each morning. Pilgrims arriving there encountered a place that valued reflection, balance, and thoughtful silence. Although Apollo was honored for prophecy, The peaceful atmosphere surrounding his sanctuary spoke just as clearly about patience. The gradual arrival of daylight across its marble structures echoed the quiet process of understanding, where wisdom appeared gently over time instead of arriving all at once. As the day continued, shadows became shorter and colors grew warmer beneath the bright sky. Apollo's light revealed details hidden during the cool hours of dawn. Leaves shimmered in olive trees, white stone reflected gentle warmth, and distant villages became clearly visible across broad valleys. Ancient life unfolded beneath this dependable brightness with a sense of calm continuity. The steady passage of daylight created natural moments for work, rest, conversation, and quiet appreciation of the surrounding landscape. Apollo was also the god of music, and many imagined harmony extending beyond instruments into the very structure of the world. The regular path of the sun reflected this same balance. Nothing in the sky appeared random. Each day followed a familiar course that encouraged confidence and peace. This quiet order became part of Greek thought, where beauty often emerged through proportion, rhythm, and careful balance, rather than overwhelming displays of power. Gentle breezes carried the warmth of afternoon across vineyards and fields. Birds circled above sunlit cliffs, while distant rivers reflected narrow bands of light. Apollo's presence could be imagined not as constant action, but as steady continuity. His journey required no sudden change because its purpose was already fulfilled through dependable movement. The world beneath him simply continued its quiet rhythm, shaped by familiar cycles that returned day after day with reassuring consistency. As afternoon slowly leaned toward evening, the sunlight softened into warmer tones. Long shadows stretched peacefully across hillsides, temples, and quiet roads. Apollo's passage approached its natural conclusion without urgency. Ancient observers accepted this daily transition as part of a complete cycle rather than an ending. Just as morning had arrived without struggle, evening also unfolded with calm inevitability, inviting the land to prepare for gentle rest beneath the approaching twilight. The western horizon gradually gathered soft colors as daylight became quieter. Gold shifted toward amber, then delicate shades of rose and violet. Apollo's light seemed to withdraw with the same grace that had welcomed the morning. The peaceful close of day reminded the Greeks that every bright beginning naturally led toward restful evening. Nothing was lost, because another sunrise would eventually return in its own unhurried time. Although Apollo became closely associated with the sun in later Greek tradition, ancient mythology preserved many layers of belief. Helios remained an important solar figure in earlier stories, while Apollo's identity continued to include music, healing, poetry, and prophecy. These traditions existed together across centuries, reflecting the rich and evolving imagination of Greek culture. Rather than replacing one another completely, the stories blended gently, creating a broader picture of divine light and harmony. Even after the sunlight faded, Apollo's influence remained connected with clarity, beauty, and peaceful order. His lyre, his temples, and his enduring symbols reminded people that harmony did not depend only upon daylight itself. The memory of light lingered within songs, thoughtful words, and carefully built sanctuaries. In this way, every completed journey across the sky left behind a quiet sense of balance that continued into the calm hours of evening. The calm journey of the sun across the Greek sky became more than a daily event. It offered an enduring image of steady movement, gentle light, and peaceful continuity. Through Apollo, the Greeks found a graceful expression for the quiet certainty that each day would unfold in its proper season. Morning, afternoon, and evening blended into an unbroken rhythm that reflected harmony within nature itself, carrying every landscape from darkness into light and softly back again. Apollo was honored not only as a bringer of light, but also as a guide toward healing. His gifts were believed to restore harmony when life drifted away from its natural rhythm. Ancient Greeks often imagined health as a quiet balance rather than the complete absence of hardship. In stories and prayers, Apollo represented the careful return of order after confusion. His presence did not erase every difficulty. Instead, it suggested that wisdom, patience, and respect for nature could gently help restore what had become unsettled. This calm understanding shaped the way many communities thought about both body and spirit. One of Apollo's most respected sons was Asclepius, who became the great healer of Greek tradition. Guided by his father's knowledge, Asclepius learned to understand illness with remarkable skill and compassion. Sanctuaries dedicated to him welcomed those seeking rest, careful observation, and hope for recovery. These places combined prayer with practical attention to the body, reflecting a belief that healing required patience rather than haste. Apollo's connection to this tradition emphasized that true care was thoughtful, measured, and closely connected to the quiet rhythms of the natural world. The laurel tree remained one of Apollo's most familiar symbols. Its evergreen leaves suggested endurance through changing seasons and the steady continuation of life. Priests, poets, and victors sometimes wore laurel wreaths, not simply as decorations, but as signs of discipline, learning, and lasting honor. The tree itself became associated with calm reflection rather than loud celebration. Its quiet presence reminded many that achievement could be carried with modesty, and that enduring wisdom often grew slowly, much like the steady growth of branches reaching toward the light. Apollo was also linked with knowledge that reached beyond ordinary understanding. At Delphi, his sanctuary became one of the most respected sacred places in the Greek world. Travelers came from distant cities hoping to receive guidance through the words spoken by the Pythia, the priestess who served the god. The responses were often thoughtful and symbolic instead of direct commands. This reflected an ancient belief that wisdom invited careful reflection rather than immediate certainty. Apollo's guidance encouraged people to think deeply before choosing their path. Inscribed at Delphi was a simple phrase that became one of the best-known ideas of ancient Greece: know yourself. Though brief, these words carried lasting meaning. They encouraged people to recognize both their strengths and their limits with honesty. Apollo's sanctuary did not promise endless answers. Instead, it invited quiet self-understanding. In this way, wisdom was seen as something discovered gradually through reflection, humility, and careful attention to one's own character. The message remained gentle, asking for balance rather than perfection. Another famous saying connected with Apollo's sanctuary advised people to avoid excess. Moderation was considered a path toward lasting harmony. Ancient Greek thinkers often admired balance in every part of life, from conversation and learning to celebration and daily work. Apollo embodied this measured approach. His stories rarely celebrated extremes for their own sake. Instead, they suggested that lasting strength came from restraint, thoughtful choices, and respect for natural limits. These quiet lessons became woven into philosophy as well as religious tradition. Music also belonged to Apollo's healing presence. The gentle sound of the lyre represented order shaped into melody. Rather than overwhelming the listener, its imagined music reflected proportion, balance, and calm. Greek philosophers sometimes described harmony in music as a reflection of harmony within the soul. Apollo's instrument, therefore, became more than an object of performance. It symbolized the possibility that beauty and careful balance could bring peaceful clarity to the mind, just as steady breathing settles the body after a long day. The seasons themselves reflected Apollo's quiet rhythm. His journeys across the myths were often linked with changing times of the year, suggesting that life moved in repeating cycles rather than straight lines. Growth, rest, warmth, and stillness each had their proper place. Nothing needed to remain unchanged forever. This gentle acceptance of natural cycles encouraged patience with the passing of time. Apollo's presence reminded many that renewal often arrived gradually, following patterns that had unfolded for generations. Many artists imagined Apollo as youthful, yet his wisdom reached beyond age. His calm appearance reflected inner order instead of restless ambition. In sculpture and poetry alike, he stood as an image of balanced strength, where confidence was joined with restraint. The beauty associated with Apollo was never meant to exist without discipline or understanding. Instead, outward grace reflected inward harmony. This quiet ideal influenced generations of artists who searched for proportion, simplicity, and enduring calm in their own work. Greek physicians, philosophers, musicians, and poets all found different meanings within Apollo's stories. Though their paths were not identical, they shared an appreciation for careful observation and thoughtful practice. Healing required attention. Music required balance. Wisdom required patience. These ideas flowed together naturally beneath Apollo's gentle influence. Rather than separating knowledge into distant categories, ancient tradition often allowed them to exist side by side, supporting one another like quiet streams joining a wider river. Apollo's connection with sunlight was never simply about brightness. Morning light revealed shapes that had rested unseen through the night, allowing people to recognize familiar places once again. In symbolic ways, this reflected understanding itself. Knowledge did not force the world to become something different. Instead, it allowed hidden patterns to be noticed with greater clarity. Apollo's light therefore represented gentle awareness, arriving steadily without urgency, much like dawn spreading across mountains and valleys. Even in myths where Apollo displayed great power, moments of reflection often followed action. Ancient storytellers understood that strength without wisdom could become destructive. Apollo's lasting influence came not only from his abilities, but from the order he represented. His presence encouraged careful judgment before decisive movement. This measured quality helped distinguish him among the Olympian gods. His stories consistently returned to the quiet value of balance, where harmony remained more enduring than sudden triumph. Across centuries, pilgrims continued to visit Apollo's sacred places with hopes that extended beyond simple answers. They sought reassurance, understanding, or a renewed sense of direction. Whether they departed with certainty or thoughtful reflection, the journey itself carried meaning. Walking sacred paths encouraged moments of stillness away from ordinary concerns. In this way, Apollo's sanctuaries became places where silence could be as valuable as spoken words, allowing gentle contemplation to unfold at its own natural pace. The quiet legacy of Apollo endures as an image of harmony joining light, music, healing, and thoughtful understanding. His myth suggests that lasting balance is rarely achieved through force. Instead, it grows through steady attention, patient learning, and respect for the rhythms that shape both nature and human life. In ancient Greece, these qualities formed a gentle ideal that reached beyond temples and ceremonies. They became part of a peaceful vision in which wisdom moved calmly beside beauty, and both quietly accompanied the passing of each new day. Apollo was not only honored in lofty temples, but also remembered in ordinary moments of daily life. Travelers paused before beginning long roads, offering quiet prayers for safe passage beneath open skies. Musicians tuned their lyres with careful attention, believing harmony reflected the calm order Apollo cherished. Poets whispered verses before reciting them, hoping their words might flow with gentle clarity rather than force. His presence was imagined not as constant spectacle, but as a peaceful reminder that skill grows through patience, practice, and balance. In villages and cities alike, people found comfort in the thought that beauty could arise from steady devotion. Artists often looked toward Apollo as a symbol of measured inspiration rather than sudden excitement. Ancient storytellers described music as something that could settle restless thoughts and gently restore order within the heart. A carefully played melody echoed the balance found in nature, where seasons followed one another without haste. Every carefully shaped poem or patiently carved statue reflected the belief that excellence came through calm attention instead of hurried effort. Apollo's influence encouraged creators to seek clear forms, graceful rhythms, and quiet confidence, allowing each work to emerge naturally over time. Those who crossed mountains or sailed along familiar coastlines sometimes carried small offerings dedicated to Apollo. A sprig of fresh laurel, a simple song, or a brief moment of silent gratitude could accompany the beginning of a journey. These gestures were less about grand displays than about acknowledging the uncertain roads ahead. Under the broad daylight associated with Apollo, travelers imagined themselves guided toward safe harbors and welcoming towns. The gentle rhythm of footsteps across dusty paths became another quiet expression of trust in the steady order of the world. The sanctuary at Delphi welcomed visitors from many regions of the Greek world. Kings, merchants, sailors, and farmers all came seeking guidance, yet the sacred place itself remained remarkably serene. Mountain air drifted across stone terraces while offerings rested quietly before the temple. Apollo's connection with Delphi was understood as one of wisdom expressed through thoughtful reflection rather than haste. The journey there often mattered as much as the arrival, encouraging careful observation of the landscapes, seasons, and changing light that accompanied each traveler along the way. Apollo was also closely connected with healing through his son Asclepius, whose gifts became famous throughout Greek tradition. While Apollo himself was associated with both illness and relief in different myths, his broader role reminded people that balance could return after hardship. Ancient communities valued careful observation of nature, fresh air, clean water, and peaceful surroundings alongside sacred practices. These ideas blended practical experience with religious devotion, creating places where hope quietly accompanied recovery. Gentle sunlight itself became a lasting symbol of renewal rather than overwhelming brilliance. Young students learning poetry or music often encountered Apollo through stories before mastering their own crafts. Teachers emphasized repetition, memory, and careful listening instead of rushing toward perfection. The measured pace of learning reflected the gods' association with harmony and discipline. Every verse remembered correctly, and every note played with care represented another small step along a lifelong path. In this way, Apollo became a quiet companion to education, encouraging steady improvement rather than sudden achievement. Laurel leaves remained among Apollo's most enduring symbols. Their connection reached back to the story of Daphne, whose transformation into a laurel tree filled later traditions with quiet remembrance. Rather than forgetting, Apollo honored the tree by making its leaves sacred to him. Victorious poets and musicians sometimes received laurel wreaths, not simply as signs of success, but as reminders that dedication and memory walked together. The evergreen branches suggested endurance through changing seasons, carrying calm significance across generations. As daylight moved gently across fields and coastlines, Apollo's presence was imagined in the dependable rhythm of each new morning. Unlike dramatic storms or restless seas, the daily arrival of light followed a reassuring pattern. Farmers, shepherds, and fishermen could begin familiar work with quiet confidence. Ancient myths often connected divine order with the regular cycles observed in nature, allowing ordinary routines to carry a subtle sacred meaning. Even the simplest sunrise became part of a larger harmony extending across land, sea, and sky. Musical competitions dedicated to Apollo celebrated skill, yet the deeper ideal remained harmony rather than rivalry alone. Listeners admired performances that displayed balance, clarity, and graceful restraint. A well-played melody could calm a gathering more effectively than loud celebration. Ancient Greeks valued music not only for entertainment, but also for education and thoughtful reflection. Apollo's lyre represented this gentle union of beauty and order, reminding people that the quietest notes often lingered longest in memory. Along distant roads, merchants carried stories from one city to another. With them traveled songs, poems, and customs connected to Apollo's worship. Sanctuaries dedicated to him became familiar landmarks where visitors from different regions could pause, rest, and share peaceful conversation. These places linked communities separated by mountains and islands, offering a shared sense of tradition beneath the same bright sky. The calm continuity of these journeys reflected Apollo's enduring place within everyday Greek life. Many Greek cities honored Apollo with festivals that blended music, athletic contests, and sacred ceremonies. Although celebrations could be lively, they also reflected careful organization and respect for tradition. Songs were rehearsed, offerings prepared, and rituals performed with measured attention. This thoughtful preparation echoed the values associated with Apollo himself. Beauty was not treated as something accidental, but as something patiently cultivated through shared effort, memory, and reverence for the rhythms passed down through generations. Even after the classical age, Apollo remained a lasting symbol of light, learning, and artistic excellence. Sculptors, philosophers, and writers continue to look back upon his stories as expressions of balance between reason and creativity. Across centuries, his image stood quietly among marble columns and weathered ruins, reminding later generations of ideals that outlived kingdoms. The calm dignity associated with Apollo became part of a much larger cultural memory, extending far beyond ancient Greece itself. The landscapes connected with Apollo often feel peaceful even in imagination. Quiet valleys, sunlit hillsides, gentle coastlines, and sacred springs invite slow reflection rather than hurried movement. These settings mirror the qualities most often associated with him: clarity, steadiness, and graceful order. Instead of overwhelming the senses, they encourage calm observation of light moving across stone, leaves stirring softly in the breeze, and distant mountains resting beneath the changing sky. In the gentle rhythm of myth, Apollo remains less a distant ruler than a quiet presence accompanying music, learning, travel, and the dependable return of morning light. His stories invite appreciation for patience, careful craftsmanship, and peaceful balance woven into ordinary life. Across temples, roads, hills, and seas, generations imagined that harmony could be discovered through attentive living rather than restless striving. The image of Apollo endures like the first calm light of dawn, arriving each day with quiet certainty and lasting grace. As the final glow of day settled across the hills of Greece, Apollo's work did not truly end. The golden light softened into quiet amber, and the warmth of the sun gently withdrew beyond the western horizon. Ancient poets imagined that this peaceful departure followed a steady order, never hurried and never uncertain. The world accepted the familiar rhythm with calm confidence, knowing that daylight would always return in its proper season. In this dependable pattern, Apollo became more than a radiant god. He represented the quiet certainty that each ending carried the promise of another gentle beginning. Even after the visible light faded, Apollo remained connected to harmony rather than absence. His presence lingered in the memory of music, in the warmth still resting upon marble stones, and in the peaceful silence that followed birdsong. Ancient Greek thought often celebrated balance, where brightness and darkness belonged together instead of standing as enemies. Twilight became a graceful meeting place between the two, allowing the world to rest before welcoming another dawn with quiet acceptance. At Delphi, Apollo's sacred sanctuary rested beneath the evening sky with remarkable stillness. The temple stood upon the mountainside as generations had known it, reflecting the last traces of sunlight upon pale stone. Pilgrims had departed, priests completed their rituals, and the sacred space settled into peaceful quiet. The silence itself seemed meaningful, reminding the ancient Greeks that wisdom did not always arrive through spoken words. Sometimes calm observation carried its own gentle understanding. Apollo's lyre, gifted by Hermes long before, remained one of his most enduring symbols. Its imagined melodies reached beyond festivals and ceremonies, expressing the hidden order found throughout nature itself. Gentle intervals, measured rhythms, and balanced tones reflected the same harmony visible in the movement of stars and seasons. To the Greeks, music was not merely entertainment. It revealed a quiet structure beneath everyday life, where beauty emerged through careful proportion and peaceful balance. As darkness spread across the valleys, the stars slowly appeared one after another without haste. Apollo did not rule the night sky directly, yet his devotion to order extended naturally into every changing cycle. Day yielded to evening just as spring gave way to summer and summer to autumn. Nothing rushed against its proper place. The steady movement of time reflected the same gentle consistency that ancient storytellers admired in Apollo's character. Olive groves became quiet beneath the cooling air, their silver leaves barely moving in the evening breeze. The bright heat of midday had passed, leaving behind a peaceful stillness that invited rest. Apollo's light no longer shone across every branch, yet its memory remained in the warmth stored within stone paths and earth. Nature itself seemed content to breathe more slowly, embracing the calm rhythm that followed every completed day. The ancient Greeks often connected Apollo with clarity of thought as much as with sunlight itself. Clarity did not demand constant activity. Instead, it often emerged after quiet reflection, when noise settled and the mind found balance once more. Evening naturally encouraged this gentle state. Without urgency, the world became softer, allowing careful observation to replace hurried action. Apollo's example reminded listeners that wisdom could arrive through calm patience rather than restless striving. Far beyond the cities, shepherds watched the final colors disappear from the western horizon. The familiar cycle unfolded exactly as it always had. Livestock rested, gentle breezes cooled the fields, and silence gradually expanded across the countryside. These ordinary moments reflected the same dependable order celebrated in myth. Apollo's presence lived not only within temples and sacred songs, but also within the peaceful regularity of everyday life across ancient Greece. The laurel tree, forever associated with Apollo after the story of Daphne, remained green through changing seasons. Its leaves became symbols of honor, poetry, and enduring memory. Even in evening shadows, The evergreen branches suggested quiet continuity rather than decline. Their gentle resilience reflected Apollo's lasting influence across generations of artists, musicians, and storytellers who found inspiration beneath the same familiar skies. When later philosophers reflected upon harmony, many continued to admire the qualities long associated with Apollo. Measured thought, moderation, beauty, and balance formed ideals that reached beyond myth into daily life. These virtues asked for neither excess nor spectacle. Instead, they encouraged steady habits and thoughtful actions. Like the gradual arrival of evening, true harmony unfolded quietly, shaping both communities and individuals without demanding attention. Night fully embraced the land without disturbing the order established by daylight. The changing sky became another expression of the same reliable universe. Apollo's journey was understood as part of a greater pattern rather than an isolated event. Every dawn and every dusk belonged together, each completing the other with gentle precision. In that dependable rhythm, the ancient imagination discovered lasting comfort instead of uncertainty. The memory of Apollo endured through countless poems, hymns, sculptures, and quiet conversations shared across centuries. Artists carved his calm features into marble, musicians honored his lyre, and poets celebrated the light he represented. Though each generation expressed these ideas differently, the central image remained remarkably consistent. Apollo continued to embody measured beauty, clear thought, and the peaceful order that connected humanity with the natural world. As every evening reached its peaceful conclusion, the world settled into restful silence. The warmth of the day slowly faded from stone temples, hillsides, and quiet shores. Nothing needed to hurry toward tomorrow. The steady rhythm that Apollo represented had already carried the day to its gentle close. Rest became another natural movement within that endless cycle, as essential and beautiful as the return of morning itself. In the timeless flow of Greek mythology, Apollo remained a quiet reminder that harmony is found through balance, patience, and steady renewal. His light did not conquer the night, nor did darkness erase the memory of day. Together they formed an endless rhythm that continued across seasons, generations, and stories. The peaceful cycle moved forward without interruption, inviting the world to rest before another gentle sunrise once again filled the ancient landscape with calm golden light.